So my name is Taranjeet Kaur. I have been a software engineer for the last 15 years. And for the most part of my career, I thought that I can be only marginally successful as a technologist. And I could go only so far as a technician, as a software engineer. And why I thought so was because A, I'm a woman. There were no role models. There were less role models in technology, and the data was against me. The data was against me of excelling in technology because I was a woman. But now, after a lot of trial and error, debugging, root cause analysis, troubleshooting the code in my local, I have come to a conclusion that I can be as successful as any other gender or any other men in technology, right? I have tried this with my daughters, the girls that I mentor in my private life, and I think I have come to a reasonable conclusion that there's nothing that stops me from excelling in technology because I'm a woman. These things are not related, and today I'm here to prove that whoever thought that technology is not for women need to change his or her opinion. Okay, with that I'll get started. And I just want to pulse the room of what brings you here today. And for that, I'll probably step away from the camera for a little bit. And I want to ask a couple of questions so that I can see the room. I'll be probably walking away from the camera. So if you can just tell me with the show of hand, how many of you are here because you are training women in technology in your workspace? Or you are in that role where you are taking care of women, empowering women in technology at work? I see a couple of hand raised, probably around, I'd say 5% of the audience in this room. How many of you are looking to train women in technology in your personal life? Like with your daughters, with the girls you meet in social circle? Okay, I see a lot more hand raises, and I think roughly around 30% of the room is looking to train women in technology in their private life. Okay. So how many of you, and this would be my last question, I promise, how many of you are here because you have some sense of why women in technology is underrepresented, but you are here to validate your idea and probably add some more ideas to your kitty? Okay, wow, okay, a lot. Okay, that's good, that's great. I think 50 to 60% of the room said they have some idea, and I would love to know about your ideas maybe when we chat afterwards. So it's good. That's a good start, okay? Now I'm going back to the screen. All right, so after pulsing the room, let me conclude it here. 5% of you said you are training women in technology in your work life. You're probably in that role, or mentoring women because in the mentorship role, or that's just a job responsibility. 20% of you said you're looking around to train women in your personal life. Probably your coaches, your moms, your dads, or grandparents, and coaching women in your personal life, or mentoring women in your social circle. Around 60 to 70% of you said you have some idea of why women in technology is underrepresented, but you want to hear to validate the theory. Okay. So, and my last question would be, how many of you have no clue what's going on? Accidentally walked into the session because all other rooms were pretty busy. Okay, no show. Awesome. Okay. So before we start into brainstorming into why, figuring out the patterns, I'll talk about patterns a lot in my slides. Before we start that, I just want to level set something here. What I'm doing here is, what we will evaluate is what is causing that divide, right? We have been working in IT. A lot of women can validate this here, that they are mostly the only women in the room. They are probably joined by, they are high minority in the room whenever they are in their technical meetings, when they are in a project discussion. So we all agree to that we have less representation. So why I'm here today is to evaluate why there is a gap, and then to take measures that we can do in daily life that can help us solve that problem once and for all. I'm not here to talk about gender pay gap, things that should happen on social media, what should I post on my job description to attract women. I'm not the best person to answer those questions, and I'm not prepared for it today, honestly. Today, I'm purely here to check on what's causing the divide, what are the specific factors, what goes around your day-to-day life that caused the drift, that caused the women to move away from technology, and what you and I, an average person, can do in the daily life to improve that situation, okay? Just to level set there. All right. So some components of my identity: I'm a woman, I'm mom of 2 girls, I'm a technologist for life, and I'm a mentor for a lot of girls in my social circle. Just to give you a background, okay? I started my career in India when I was 22. Pretty raw, out from college. I had no prior experience, meaning I was the first girl in my family to work in a multinational company. Not to sound conceited, but just want to lay out that whatever experience that I was gaining by working in that culture was my first-hand experience. Like, there was nobody to tell me that this is what you should expect, right? So this is me forming an opinion out from college, like I said, raw. I entered, and being an extrovert that I am, I like to bring people together. Organizing social event is part of my identity. Would I have done it if I were a man? I do not know, but that's just how I am, right? I like to bring people together, I like to organize events, and that's just me. So that's what I did. This organization where I worked, that's what I did. I did some social activities, brought people together. What I learned from a person that there was a guy who was 6 years in his career, pretty established in IT at that time. He shared that opinion with my friend of mine, and he said, beware of women like these who are imposters in IT. They want to fit in, but they don't belong here, okay? Now, what it did to me, what it did to my confidence was, A, it definitely made me form an opinion of what do people think about women or other genders who do these social activities, right? Who bring these people together. Like, we are probably imposters. The other thing that it did in shaking my confidence was I thought that these traits of my personality will hamper my progress as a technologist, okay? So cut back to when I moved to US, started working here a couple of years later. I came here, and to my surprise, the gender divide was even more out here. That was quite shocking, honestly. What I thought would be like, we would be somewhere similar, but the women were vastly underrepresented even in technology, even in US, the most developed nation in the world. So what's going on, right? Now, a couple of years later, we had 2 interns, another office setup where I was, in my team, 2 interns joined, okay? There was a boy, and this girl. Now, they were fresh, like out of college, like I was back when I joined. So what we saw in meetings after meetings were the girl, being an introvert she would not speak up in the meetings. She was hesitant to give the opinion, although she was really smart. And this boy, who was an extrovert, probably borderline offensive sometimes, he would get aggravated in certain situations, but he would speak up in the meetings, right? So we were not hearing from the girl, but were hearing a lot from the boy. Although mental capability, I would say they were at par, or maybe the girl was slightly more than the boy. Now, what somebody did in my team was she, being in her late 40s, she wanted to coach the girl, okay? She meant well. She went to the girl on a personal level, nothing office related, but on a personal level, she went to the girl and told her, because you are a woman, I know you are hesitant to speak up in the meetings, and I want you to get rid of that, and I want you to speak in meetings. Okay? And I think she meant well, but what she did was, she associated her being a woman to being an introvert, hence not being able to speak. Now think of it. You are that person. It is how you are, right? Now you associated that quality of a woman with not speaking up in meetings because you are low on confidence. These things are not related. But way it was presented to her, I think it was presented in a way that you have to be less version of yourself, which is impossible to be, right? Because you are in your early 20s, I think you sort of form a personality already by that time. And that's why we see so many women drop out of technology, because they are being forced to think that it is something in them, something being a woman in them, that they cannot handle that technology pressure or be that technical or be that rational in thinking, right? To the boy, nobody said you need to be less boy. They all were like, okay, you are a little extrovert, you get agitated in certain situation, you need to work on your interpersonal skill. So constructive, right? So he would probably think, oh, I have to work on my interpersonal skill and I can go so far. I have just started my career. But to the girl, nobody said that you can work on your interpersonal skill. They instantly associated her being a woman with her being an introvert, and hence why not being successful in technology, right? That happens with most of the women in some or other forms, right? So that's where the journey, that's when I started to explore this thing, that we should talk about it, right? So that's my journey started, and I want to talk about why did I go on this exploration route, right? Because wherever, the first thing you would do is you will Google it, why do women are underrepresented in technology? Or you would ask questions around, but nothing gave me a good answer on why there is so much gap in women in technology. Why I am that person, I'm the only woman in a meeting room, why I am only women in the floor, or why I am the only technologist in some of the offices, right? No one else seemed to have a good answer for me, right? And that's when I thought that I need to, it's 2022, I need to get away with this problem, because guess what? Technology is shaping everything that we do and how we behave, right? Technology is now part of our life. It is not somewhere you go. It's not a cafe that you go to. It's so much, technology is shaping so much of our behavior that I think if women lose this opportunity to represent themselves in technology, we will be missing out on a huge opportunity. Gone are the days when the wars are fought with hands, right? There's no manual thing involved. Now we are doing brain surgery with robots. I think this is a crucial juncture for women to understand that this gap is not okay. It's not okay to the gap, and it has nothing to do with being a woman, right? So I want to establish that. And the other thing that motivated me to talk about this was, to explore this further, was because there are so many women who have done it. Despite all these things which stop you from being successful, there are so many women like Ada Lovelace, Grace Hopper, the mother of compiler. There are so many women who have still done it. That means there's something that went right for those women, but there's something missing in other women that is stopping them from being successful in technology. This is the world of Elon Musk and Steve Jobs. I think we need women representation in technology more than ever, because A, I know we can do it, and B, I know I have figured this out, and maybe with you being here and with other people listening to this, we can solve this problem in isolation, and then we can reproduce that behavior. Okay. So before we go further into exploring the reasons and debugging this, let me do a quick reality check. The reality today is there are 50% women roughly 50% women in USA, 47 in workforce, okay? 0% gender gap on math skills from grade 2 to 11. So there's nothing till grade 11 that will tell your teachers that this girl is lacking in technology or STEM education. There's no gap from 2 to 11. But only 7% women do STEM degrees. And only 24% women in tech. To 24, if you exclude all the non-technical role, even in technology, I think this number would be far less. But if you think at it, if you look at it, the number drastically changes from 0% gender gap in 2 to 11 to when it gets to STEM degrees. That means there's something happening in a woman's brain that is telling her between those ages, or maybe early on, that she can be only marginally successful, like it was seeded in my head, right? And I think if you look at it, if you are trying to solve this problem, at what stage the gap starts and at what triggers that gap is going to be crucial in our analysis, which we are going to start now, okay? Well, this is my favorite slide. And I get a lot of questions asked because why is this picture here? And honestly, I have no idea. I think I just like it. It's so calming. Okay. So 3 steps to fix the issue. Developers here, we know how to do this. We define the problem, right? We define the set of inputs, reproduce the pattern, and create the output. What we do next is to remove the factors from the input so that we create another output with me, right? That's how we debug every issue that we see in our work life. That's how we are going to do this today. We're going to redefine the problem because I think we have not defined it enough. We have not defined it well enough. Why? Because we have looked at the problem from its outcome. We have not hit the nail. We have not gone to the root cause. And you have sat in multiple meetings, probably at this point, where if you don't talk about the root cause, you're never going to get the solution, right? So we are going to redefine the root cause. We are going to define the input and the output, as you see, as a result of the inputs, and then we are talking about fixing the problem, okay? So to define the problem statement, what I did was I talked to multiple people in my circle, personal space and as well as work life, okay? So I talked to managers, like non-IT professions within IT, and then I talked to people like my daughter's friend's mom, and they were like, okay, she's having a weird conversation, why is she asking me those questions? But that did not stop me, okay? I still went ahead and asked them. I think at that point I was like, it's going to be awkward, but I'll do it regardless because I wanted to get the answer for these 2 questions. Why do you think we have fewer women in technology? And what is it about the American household and education system that causes the girls to lose interest in STEM? Remember that grad school difference that you saw? While science has not proven any brain difference. So there was a study which was conducted on IQ of women compared to men, and they saw more range in men IQ, but there was nothing that tells that there is difference between IQ level overall. So there was less range in women IQ and more range in men IQ, but overall they were at par. In fact, there was a Google technologist who claimed that women's brain is not made to succeed in technology. I think he later sued Google as well, but I want to challenge him, right? I want to challenge him with his theory, and I think we will be walking away with the notion here that no such thing exists, and it is all about the patterns that you see. We'll talk about patterns a little more. So my 2 questions, right? Now the survey results. Astonishing. They were like, I had no clear answer from anybody. So 100% of my people who surveyed, the people who I surveyed, they were not sure. They could not tell me this is the reason why we think women is less in technology or less successful as a technologist or as an engineer, as a person who has to logically, analytically think about a situation, right? They were not sure. Some said that there are probably cultural factors responsible, like pinkification, pink aisle. You and I, we are familiar with that. Some said that, I interviewed some of the teachers in my daughter's school. Some said that it's the STEM education is not fun for girls. Well, it's not fun for boys as well. So it's the same kind of education. Why are they into it, but women are moving away from it at very early in their career, or even when they are pursuing higher studies? So some said that even in Nordic countries, like Denmark, Sweden, Finland, most gender-neutral societies, you still see this difference. That means women are not made to be successful in technology, right? But then to counterpoint, it was why Asian and we Indian women, why we see more of you in technology. And I have a hypothesis there as well, which I can share with you. I think the hypothesis that I want to say is that you see more of Asian and Indian women in technology, because if you look at developing countries, if you want to come out of patriarchy, only doing an advanced degree is your way out. Otherwise, even if you're a teacher, you own a salon, or you run a salon, or you do a bakery, there's not enough economy balance that you can make to come out of that patriarchy. You have to do an advanced degree, which usually comes out to be an engineering or a doctor or some kind of PhD that gives you that economic safety so that you don't have to report to a single authority at household, be it men or female, men or women, right? So that further proves my point that if pushed hard enough, you can actually have women pursue technology as a career choice. But even in those women, we have not seen the reason to know why. The drive to connect the dots, the drive to analytically think, even in those girls, the drive was missing, right? I have seen a lot of personal experiences, and yes, the world is still run by men in technology, right? At least for the technology firms. So there is something that motivates them to take it, but there are still patterns that hold them back, right? So even in those women. So that means if pushed hard enough, you can still pursue it. Nothing will stop you, right? And that further proves the point that, yes, there are factors which contribute in your upbringing, in the society, that contributes you as a technologist, right? That further, I will talk about in future slides, but survey results reflected that A, people had no idea, right? Most of the people were clueless. And two, they were trying to connect it to the wrong cause, right? And then with that survey result, I think I had concluded that I see a lot of Asian women. Some said that even both of us parents are engineers or doctors, and still our girls are not interested, right? So if you believe in, like, if there is a DNA, you get transferred from mom and dad, still you are not interested, that means that it is not about how you are wired, right? That further proves that somebody said that I am a doctor, my husband is a PhD, still my girl is so much into princesses and Barbies and unicorns and not so much into analytical thinking, right? That if you look at Ada Lovelace or Grace Hopper, I think both of their moms were mathematicians. That means there was something going on with them that negated the behavior that society was presenting in front of them. And so in order to define the problem, what we did was, and please do not push us all to read into the slide, I'll sum it up for you. I think the colors are off, so let me sum it up for you. What we are doing is we are tackling the outcome. We are not tackling the root cause. The outcome is, so we started with, why is engineering male dominated? I think that's what the problem statement has been for most part, right? You have been to a lot of women in tech conferences. I have been to a lot of them. I have spoken in a lot of women in tech conferences. I've spoken to a lot of women in technology, like we went to this school All these girls were teens or preteens, and we did a Python workshop, and I could not see the drive. The drive was vastly missing even in those girls, right? So what we are doing is, why is engineering male-dominated? Let's hire more women engineer, right? Another tackling the outcome. But there are not enough females engineering applying for the job. So what we do, let's make the description of the job more women-friendly, right? Still tackling the outcome. Now we made the description of the job more women-friendly, but still not enough women applying for the job. That means, now let me tackle getting more women into STEM schools, right? Again, tackling the outcome. We are getting more women in grad schools now, making STEM more friendly for girls, but still we created STEM programs and so on and so forth, but I think we are looking at the problem in isolation. We are just tackling the outcome, and we are not tackling the root cause. And that takes me to the next slide of what is engineering. Engineering is the ability to observe common patterns and critically analyze them to create desired outcome. So they did a study on Garry Kasparov, the famous chess player. They asked him that how much time it takes you to make a move. He said, I can recognize the patterns on the chessboard, 10,000 of them, and I can make a move in less than 30 seconds. But if you give me a square with the chess thing on it, I cannot make a move in 2 to 3 minutes. Pattern recognition is the most critical function of our brain. I have a 4-year-old. All she talks about is, this is the cause, this is the effect. This is the cause, this is the effect, right? The why problem that the toddler has, right? Pattern recognition is the single most important brain function, and the patterns that we are giving to a girl child are different from the pattern that we are posing in front of the boys. And I'll prove that in the next slide. But the only profession that comes close to this gender gap is, can anybody take a guess? The only profession that comes close to this gender gap is stand-up comedian, which is which is kind of weird if you think about it. But if you look in detail, if you look just a step beyond, both the professions are looking into incongruity of the system. They both want you to look away from how things are and to reason them why. An engineer will try to solve the system. Like if you tell me that, if I give you a scenario, right? If I give you a scenario that how many people will attend the movie tonight, right? An engineer will go and devise a workflow, how many people walked into the theater, how many attended session 1, and what was the drop from 1 to session 2 and 3 and 4, and he will devise an algorithm to count how many people will attend the movie tonight, right? If you talk to a comedian, he will find the incongruity in the system. He'll say, those people who are waiting for the drinks will attend the movie tonight. Or he'll say, who have date tonight and in the theater later, they will probably be attending the movie tonight. Or who have a date at the mall, they'll probably be attending the movie tonight. Or something which tells me that the system does not work. I have to question the system. I have to make it work for me, right? So these two professions, because of the incongruity that they find the system, they come close in the gender gap. It's like 70-30 in engineering and 80-20 or more in comedy, right? So that takes me to the pattern that we see every day, that that is thrown at a girl every day, right? So now we have defined the problem. The problem is not why I have so less women in workspace. The problem is why the women is drifting away from technology at very early stages in their life, right? The patterns that you see in everyday normal conversation, right? If I were to pulse the room, and maybe for that also I have to step away, how many of you have attended a girls' party with a Disney princess theme? Yeah, 90% of the audience. And how many of you have attended a girls' party with some robotic or science theme? Okay, 2 hands. 90% to roughly 5%, I'll say, in the room. How many of you have complimented a girl on her looks, a girl in teens, or like your daughter, right? Or somebody like your wife, and everybody, how many of you have complimented a girl? Just think of just a child, right? How many of you have complimented a child for the looks? Okay. How many of you have complimented a child, a girl in her teens, a preteens, about why, how she's thinking about it? Yeah, so the difference is of 5% to 10% to 90%, right? So from 5 to 10%. So the pattern that we see day in and day out is that if you work with the system, and if you stop thinking that why are you appreciated in a certain way, but why you're not appreciated a certain way, then the system will work for you, right? Then you'll be treated more as a female who, as opposed to when you start questioning the system, when you start connecting. So everything that you do in a daily life, it is moving away from natural instinct of questioning, right? You would argue that I don't do any special thing for the boys I know in my life, right? And I had this question even in a session when I presented the session, that I don't do any session, I don't do anything special for the boy. But then the stimulation that your boy gets is not the same stimulation that your girl is getting. What she is receiving day in and day out is, you look nice, that will make you better person, right? Or high morale, that's probably the right thing to do. But I think somebody has to negate the influence that we get day in and day out, right? If I go to the pink aisle, if I go to my gym, let's say, right? I walk into the gym every day and all I see is blowouts are girl's best friend. We have seen all of it, might have seen it some. I am women in my 30s. I know that that's capitalism. They are trying to sell the product. But a girl who is trying to form an opinion of the society, she doesn't know it. I have an 11-year-old as well. If I don't tell her that they are just trying to sell a product, diamonds are girl's best friend, they're just trying to sell a product, right? You may or may not like diamonds, and it has nothing to do with you being a woman. It has nothing to do with you being a technician. It has nothing to do with you reasoning out and connecting dots. It's just them selling the product. That doesn't mean you don't have to like diamonds or you have to be a certain way. All I'm saying is, you don't have to be any type to be a technologist. The only type for you to succeed as a technologist is you being able to connect the dots, you being able to question, you being able to challenge the system, make it work for you, as opposed to fitting into a system and working its way, right? So everyday normal conversation, the pink aisle like I talked, and all the STEM initiatives that we do for guys. Right? We feel proud that my guys is in car, but we never challenge the girl who is forming an opinion about how society likes her. The behavior which gets rewarded gets repeated. So what you reward your child for, what you reward your women around in for, that will get repeated. It will happen on its own. You don't have to try harder. You don't have to do anything. The behavior which gets rewarded will get repeated, but you have to reward the right behavior, right? I'm not saying that forget all the princesses and the Cinderellas that you know of, right? But the pattern that you're establishing in a girl child is so much different from what you're doing for your man, right? The pattern today that I saw as a girl and that my daughter is seeing around is, there's a princess who behaves in a certain way, and her happily ever after happens as a result of it. But there is nothing which tells that girl who's growing up, forming an opinion, that even if you take smart decisions, even if you ask why, still you'll be equally liked. Still you'll be successful as a person, right? So there has to be some way that you have to negate that influence that is going on day in and day out in a girl's life. Like the nails, oh, you have to de-stress yourself. The nail salon is not the only way out, right? You can actually de-stress yourself by so many things by solving a math puzzle, right? Or doing something which is not women-like, right? So exclude the stereotypes and at least 2 behavior per day, make it a point to reward the person around you, to reward the women in technology around you, or the women you want to see grow in technology around you for the why that they bring to the table. Not for anything else, not for anything for them to do with the women, but just for reasoning it out, right? Reinforce the standard of what describes a woman, which has nothing to do with technology, and that's what I learned, that nothing else matters, but if I can debug that code, and if I can do well than others, then I'll be successful, and it has nothing to do with the way I dress up, right? You could be wearing glasses, or you could not be wearing glasses. You could be nerd looking, or you could not be nerd looking. You could be shopping or not shopping, introvert, extrovert. It doesn't matter. What matters is you can reason it out, you can apply the why to the situation, and you can come out of it by using your innovation or by challenging this system, right? So that concludes the part that I was talking about. What are the inputs and what are the resulting outputs, right? Now, how do we fix the problem? They say there are 4 influences in your circle, right? Your parents, your siblings, right? That's the first influence that you get. Your school teachers, coaches, and other role models, and finally the industry. I think all of these factors have to come together. Our teachers have to identify the behavior, separate the behavior of a girl from an introvert, from person who is not willing to speak, from a boy, right? So these things are not related, and we as coaches, as mentors, I know many of you raised hand that you are looking for some suggestions in your private life to teach women around you in technology, to see them grow in technology. I think all these factors have to come together, right? Not just hiring, not just putting a social media display on why should women be succeeding in technology. It has to be our day-to-day parents that we show to a girl that women in technology does not have to be of any type. You just have to be reasoning it out, right? So, and like I said, hiring is, everything has to come together. Hiring is just the beginning, right? So you hire more women, and what I want to conclude with is you have to share your story. The story is, see, you don't have to agree with everything that I said. That's not what I want. What I want is whatever version of story that you have, whatever makes you think that this is working for you, share it with others, right? Make sure that you appreciate the women in technology around you, not for anything else, just for reasoning it out, just for connecting the dots, just for putting the rational behavior around that, and do share the story. I think that's going to be critical because I feel that we have this problem even today, right? 2022, we still have this problem. That means somebody did not define the problem right for us, and then somebody who probably figured it out, like if we had studied Ada Lovelace or people like Grasshopper, we would have been able to study them further and see that behavior pattern being repeated. But I don't think we as a society did a good job at it. So we need to come together and see what is working for the girls in technology and repeat that behavior. Appreciate them for showing the great, despite of all this, despite of all these negative influence, if you see somebody who is doing well in technology, just make sure that it gets accounted for and you appreciate that specific behavior, okay? And it is changing. This is from the National STEM program. This was 2020, right? And the first top 4 position went to girl. This was the first time ever. So I think it's changing for sure. It's changing, but we have to study these girls, repeat that behavior, make sure that they get the visibility that we need to bring further the women in technology. And with that, I want to make sure that please stand up for women in technology. And thank you, everyone.